Live from the Business Radio X studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, this is going to be a great one. Kathy Healy is with us. She is with Healy Wealth Management, and she and her husband, John, do great work, and you're going to be excited, I know, to listen to what she has to offer today on this show. But before we get to Kathy, I just want to remind you that we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you are tired of that mega bank experience, and if you're at one of those banks, you know what I mean. They really don't want to deal with you personally. I mean, that's just what I hear from people that are at those big banks. Here's what the folks that I refer to Renaissance, here's what they come back and tell me, that Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need they throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. It's quite a magic combination at Renaissance Bank, and the place to start is renaissancebank.com. Be in touch, check them out, and I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And again, now I want to welcome Kathy Healy. Kathy is with Healy Wealth Management. Kathy, welcome.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about you and Healy Wealth Management. How are you serving folks out there?
So we started our company. My husband and I partnered and started a company in 2000, and we've been serving clients in the Atlanta area, mainly executives, business owners, and families since 2000.
Wow. You're coming up on 25 years.
Yeah, we are. It's nice it helps in this industry to have some experience where you've seen some things, some ups and downs in the market, ups and downs in people's lives. You've got some experience to draw on, as well as, of course, the knowledge and whatever credentials we have.
Yeah, for sure. And that is, we've seen a few things
Yeah, we have.
since 2000, that's for sure. We started out with the dot-com bubble in 2000, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, wow. That takes us back. So I read a statistic that I can't remember the exact number, but nobody thinks they're wealthy, right? I mean,
that's true.
Yeah, no one thinks they're wealthy. Talk about what wealth management really means from your perspective.
From my perspective, I think wealth management is a lot about lifestyle. It's really about what you want your life to be, how you're going to get there. And it really, I hate to say it because this sounds like boring and nobody wants to do it, knowing how much you're spending. So if you're thinking about wealth management and growing your wealth, the first place to start is to look and see what you're spending, what your life costs, and what you want it to be in the future.
Because the discounted value of those dollars, and that's a fancy way of saying what those dollars are worth in future years, right, is substantial, depending on how you handle that money, right?
Yeah, the easy way to have wealth in retirement is to not spend more than you make during your working years, and you have to start putting money aside and save for that. And so the number that we try to get down to in wealth management and wealth planning is the living expenses. So that's a number that's going to follow you all the way through raising your kids, buying a house, paying off your mortgage, and then you get to retirement, and that's the number we're looking at. So we're assuming you've gotten through some of the really tough years. I think raising children and sending them to college are really stretch years for most people. They're making it maybe close. And when I ask people how much they're spending, and I don't ask them this right away, so don't worry if you talk to me, I'm not going to ask what you're spending. Some people know to the penny. Some people are budgeting and then they know it to the penny. But if people throw out a number to me, I've seen enough people's expenses to know when it's just not true. So, for example, here we are in North Fulton. If you're living in North Fulton and you've got internet and you're streaming Prime and Netflix, and your kids are in activities, or your kids are in the travel soccer, you've got pretty high expenses.
Yes. And this is where knowledge is powerful, right? So where that just keeping up with what you're spending has power, because you can make changes and you can see things that where I really don't need maybe all those streaming services, and I can take a few of those and put that money back, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to mention sometimes people learn things the hard way, and I'll tell you how I learned the hard way. When I got my first job and got my apartment, I went out and I bought a couch that I just had to have. So this was in 1986, and I bought a $1,200 couch. It was wonderful. It was an 8-way, hand-tied, down-filled cushions, beautiful couch, and I charged it. And I was making $16,000 a year. So I found out pretty fast that I was never going to be able to pay that thing off. And after a year of working, I ended up moving back in with my parents, paid off my credit card, and I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Some lessons are, you just can't listen to people and do what they say. Some things you have to learn the hard way.
For sure. There are a lot of challenges in saving for retirement that really, they'll go beyond just our decisions that aren't optimal. We'll just put it like that, right? There are a lot of challenges that go beyond that. Talk about some of those.
Anytime you're trying to do something, save for retirement or save for your children's college, you've got competing goals. I think people talk about how money is one of the biggest things that married couples fight about. And when you boil it down, it's really about idea of whether you're going to use money for your life now, or if you're going to save it for a better future. And there's a lot of tension there. There's tension within a single person about how you're going to do that. But it's really hard to think ahead and put money away for the future when you've got immediate needs. Immediate needs and wants, you have to figure out what is essential and what maybe can wait. But in this day and age, it's really hard to find that distinguishing thing between, am I going to go to Disney World one more time this year, or am I going to fully fund my 401k?
Yeah, that's a tough one, particularly when you've got kids looking at you that want to go back to Disney World, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or the parents. People are hooked on that.
Sure, for sure. Let's talk about risk profile and investment objective.
Okay.
So how do you determine that? How do you know ahead of time what you're going to be comfortable with? You talked about this 2.5 decades that Healy Wealth Management has been in business, and all the ups and the downs, and both the happiness sometimes in some years and just the despair in other years in terms of just what markets do. How do you know ahead of time what your appetite for all that is?
So sometimes if you read about it, when you'll look or you'll hear advice, and they'll say it depends on your age. If you're older, you should have a lower risk profile. If you're younger, you can have a higher risk profile. But it's really a lot more complex than that, and it's very individual. And one part of it is the sleep at night factor. So if I look at somebody's profile and objectively say they should be in an aggressive growth portfolio, and they're like, that makes me really worried, then that's going to ultimately not be right for them. We'll dial it back a notch. But when you think about the factors that go into it, one is your income. If you're in your earning years, your income is your biggest asset. Your ability to work and earn money is your biggest asset. So if you're in your earning years, high earning years, then you can probably take on a little more risk. But once again, it's all very specific to the person. If you have a lot of money, like if you have $10 million and you think you need $3 million for retirement. Even if you're 70, you don't necessarily need to dial back your risk. But it just depends on all of these factors.
And then there are factors like, what do you want to leave, right?
Yeah.
Your whether it's your legacy, charitable activities that you want to keep funding, how far into the future you want to fund those, your family, and how far into the future you want to take care of family. There's a lot of issues there here, right?
Yeah, most of the people that I meet with do have a desire to leave something for their kids. How much, it varies. A lot of people do want to leave something to charity. Most of my clients are very charitably minded. In fact, our newsletter this month lists a lot of charities that our clients support. The vetted charities, just thought get the word out for some of these great nonprofits that are doing a lot of good for people who are interested in that. But some people, I do tell clients when they're in retirement, I encourage them to take some trips early on. I say, when you retire, you've got the go years, the slow go years, and the no-go years. The earlier it is, that's when you should do some trips, do some stuff that you've wanted to do that you've put off during your working years. Because later, when you get into your 80s, you may not want to take that international trip. Maybe you will. We've got clients in their 80s that are traveling internationally, but I'm just talking about the fact that you might slow down or your priorities might change. I have said to clients, and I didn't come up with this, fly first class, or your kids are going to be. And that resonates with clients and helps them. Most of them aren't going to fly first class. Most of the time when you've reached retirement and you've got a successful retirement, there's a reason for that. And it's that you're not just out there frivolously spending money. But I guess that's up to everybody to decide whether flying first class is frivolous or not. But still, the point is your money for some of the things that you want to do.
Kathy Healy's with us, folks, with Healy Wealth Management. Kathy, let's talk a little bit about handling finances as a couple and the issues that are involved in that.
So I mentioned earlier that money is highly reported as the biggest thing that married couples fight about. And one phrase that I've started to hear this year is financial infidelity. And that's something you definitely want to avoid. And that could be as simple as just squirreling away money, spending something that you don't tell your spouse about, or it could be a whole lot bigger issue than that. But I think the way to combat that is communication. And some clients have told me they meet weekly. One client called it the mom meeting of the minds, and they do it weekly. I think weekly would be a lot for me, but I think monthly would be important. Even if one spouse is the one that is mainly doing the administration of the finances, paying the bills, working with whatever financial things that are going on, it's really important for both spouses to stay up to date on that and to stay on the same page.
And it's really getting the same mind about and same goals, right? About where we're going as a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. And people have different wants and different concerns, and even married people don't agree on that. If you had a big disagreement about it, really not on the same page, then one idea would be that you separately make a list of your top 10 goals, and then you come together to talk about it and then do some collaborating and compromising.
Do you help couples navigate that? I'm not suggesting that you are the referee for a fight or anything like that, but in those couples that genuinely need help in terms of coming to a plan that they both agree on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in our meetings, it comes up. You never know what's going to come up in a meeting. So we had a couple in one time, and usually I start off by saying, what are your short term, what are your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals? And the husband said, I'm thinking about doing early retirement. I'm going to stop my career here, and I think I'd like to go teach high school for a few years in another state. And the wife's chin just about hit the floor. That was the first she had ever heard of this dream or what he wanted to do. And she said, what are you talking about? I just got the house the way I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, at that point, this is a little above my pay grade. But it does come up.
Yeah.
And I think just having frequent meetings with clients, and when we're talking about their goals together in a space dedicated to that, I think it does help. But I don't have to referee that much. That was probably the biggest, disconnect that ever just came up in a meeting.
And I guess it's really not, I guess the piece of it I'm getting at is that it's really not about refereeing so much as it is pointing out all the variables that are involved in decisions, right? Because when you're talking about all the different ways that you can and need to save for retirement, all the different impacts a particular investment strategy can have, it's helpful to have someone that's sitting there that can say, okay, if this is your goal, this is a goal you agree on, then here's some issues you need to think about.
Yeah, and I think that comes into play. You had asked about investment objective earlier and risk tolerance. And a lot of times clients aren't on the same page, even on that. Mm-hmm. One has more of a proclivity to take more risk, and one is afraid to take more risk. And so we have to come to a solution for that. And there are a lot of solutions. We can have a separate account that's more aggressive. We can have another account that's more for safety. But mainly what we really try to get couples to do is to agree on an investment objective, and then we go with that. And it's not something, the investment objective is not something that should be changing. You don't want to whipsaw. Once you have really honed in on what that should be, it should be more for the long term. So one of the biggest mistakes clients can make is if the election, and I'm not going to get political, but the election was something people have been worried about every 4 years since I've been working in this space. It always comes up. Yep. Should I lower my risk because I'm afraid so-and-so is going to win? Mm-hmm. Or should I lower, I would have clients on both sides. I had clients on both sides, and the best thing to do is to stay in the market, because you've already decided what your investment objective is. You're already at a risk tolerance that you feel is right for you. And you just tune out the short-term noise. If you're listening to the news a lot, their goal is to keep you listening to the news and to get you agitated, because that's the best way that they can keep you engaged.
Oh, come on. I'm shocked to hear that.
So tune it out and just stick to what's important. I want to talk about our investment philosophy a little bit.
Yeah.
And it is based on the values that Warren Buffett most famously employs. Mm-hmm. But for us, we do use individual stocks for clients. A diversified portfolio of individual stocks is our signature offering. But it is never going to be the hot stock that people are talking about at a cocktail party, because some of the criteria that we use in selecting stocks is that it has to have been successful over different economic cycles. So it's not going to be an IPO. It's not going to be the newest, greatest, and latest thing. It's going to be something that we know has done well through different economic cycles, and we expect it to continue. It also can't be a company that has a lot of debt on its balance sheet. And our portfolio managers do that analysis, and they select these stocks. If something changes in that company and their debt profile is one thing, and then all of a sudden it's something else, that's a sell. It doesn't meet our criteria anymore. So we really are looking for companies that are expected to grow, expected to do well in different economic cycles. Inflation has been the big story for the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. We always have companies that have pricing power. They have a distinct competitive advantage that's expected to continue. And so that's how you beat inflation or keep up with inflation in the long term.
You select stocks based on the fact that you're buying a business as opposed to buying a trend or buying what's hot or what have you.
Exactly. And I haven't really kept up or followed Peloton,
Mm-hmm.
but when we had some younger clients, a lot of 20-something clients that jumped on that Peloton bandwagon because they had one and they loved it. That's not a great way to select a stock.
Yeah. Yep. I think your clients are glad you didn't do that. I know. I know a little bit about that story, up and down and all around, for sure. Let's talk about some of the specific issues around aging and things you need to get ready for. Long-term care insurance. You're passionate about this subject.
I really am. It gets a bad rap for a lot of reasons, and the people that have the earlier policies that came out first were absolutely great policies, and they just about bankrupted some of the insurance companies, and some companies got out of the business because they underestimated the level of care and the length of time that people would need care.
Mm-hmm.
So the first ones that came out in general would pay for life, ever how long you needed care. Now, most policies have a limit to how many years they'll pay for. There are different ways that they'll pay. Some are called indemnity, which means you just get the money and you can use it as you wish. Some are reimbursement, which means they pay a facility or a provider, a licensed provider directly. So there are different ways to look at it. But what people don't like about long-term care insurance is they say, if I get it, I've paid for it, and I might never need it. So with the traditional kind, that's true. It's like car insurance. You pay in. They say, my parents never used their policy, so they don't like that aspect of it. Another thing they don't like, and this has happened to many people that have bought the traditional long-term care insurance, they say, my premium increases. And that's true. Companies have raised the premium. And some companies, like I said, have even gone out of business or they've sold. People's policies are still okay, but that's another thing people don't like about it. So the kind of long-term care insurance that I got for myself and that I like for clients is called a hybrid policy. And it's a combination life insurance, long-term care insurance. It's got a very small death benefit, but a much larger benefit that you can use for long-term care. So it solves some of the things that people don't like about it. The what if I never use it? Then there's a death benefit. These usually you can pay over 10 years or you can pay in a single premium. That's the kind of, and when should people get it? I would say, for one thing, it's expensive. And a sweet spot for people is a lot of times after they've finished paying for college and they haven't yet retired, would be a good time to get it.
Yeah.
But you want to get ahead of any kind of health problems that you have. So if you can get it before you're 60, that would probably be ideal.
So Social Security, you recommend for most individuals waiting until 70.
That's right. So if you think about Social Security, you might have heard the term your full retirement age. Most people are starting to get familiar with that. For most people now, it's age 67. If you think about that as a magic number, if you wait till you're 67, you could still be working and earning money and still get Social Security and not have to pay any of it back. If you take Social Security before that full retirement age of 67 and you're still working, that doesn't really work. There's a limit on how much you can earn, and I'm not sure exactly what it is now, but it's like $17,000 or $20,000 a year. It's not a lot. Also, when you're 67, if you go on socialsecurity.gov and you get your Social Security statement, they talk about that full retirement age. Any year earlier than that, that you take Social Security, you get 8% less. You can start taking it as early as 62, but you're going to have a lot less per month than you will get if you wait till you're 67. And then you can wait as late as age 70. So from 67 to age 70, it will grow 8% a year. So if you think that you're going to have a nice long life, if your parents have lived a long time and you've got longevity in your family, it is much better to wait till you're 70. If you're thinking about, I want to get the most money from Social Security that I possibly can, it's going to be waiting till you're 70.
Got it. Let's talk about the specific challenges around longevity and women outliving husbands. This is a subject that I know you're passionate about, and how men can probably take care of the wives they typically are going to leave behind. You've got some stats around that, and what women need to do ahead of time.
So it's a big deal. The life expectancy for women is 5 years longer than the life expectancy for men. And when you extrapolate that out, and you think also on average, there are a lot of women that are 3 to 5 years younger than their husbands. So you're looking at 8 or 10 years that they might be alone after their husband passes away. And specifically, 80% of men are married when they pass away. 80% of women will outlive their spouse. And if you go into a nursing home, you can see that play out. There are a lot more women in nursing home care than there are men. Mm-hmm. So part of that is longevity. Another part of it is women just seem to do better in a setting like that. The back to the long-term care insurance, the insurance companies have figured it out. They want to make money. They know that usually somebody will live 2 or 3 years in a long-term care facility. But for men, it's shorter. When you're thinking about planning for retirement, women need to plan to have some years when they're alone or they're without their spouse. And for their husbands, they need to think about making sure that the money is there for that. That's really important. Another thing is everybody needs to be, when they're working, contributing to their 401k and getting that match. But for women, the earlier you start that, the better off you're going to be, considering that you need to plan for up to $1 million more in retirement than a man.
That makes a lot of sense. Kathy, you have got it, the two of you, your husband John and you, being in business for as long as you have. I cannot imagine that you don't have some great success stories to talk about that you're particularly proud of. Maybe, obviously, you're in the confidentiality business, so you're not going to share names, but if you could share situations that have been or that are illustrative of the great work you do.
One that comes to mind is something that happened pretty early on in our company. We had a client that called us on New Year's Eve, and he had a friend who had been in a tragic accident, and she was in the Shepherd Center, and her life was in the balance, and she was there with her parents. She was adult. She had children. She was in her 40s, but she needed to meet with a financial advisor. And so John and I went down to the Shepherd Center on New Year's Eve and met with her, see what she needed. One thing she needed was a banker. And you and I both know Rose Sharif. I called her. She was a branch manager at a bank at the time.
Shout out to Rose.
Shout out to Rose that she also showed up at the Shepherd Center to meet with this client. She became a client, and over the years, her whole family has come over to work with us. And it made a big difference. And I think just being willing to show up on a holiday, happy to go and help her, and just really happy to see what she's done over the years.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we don't really, a lot of times, think of our financial advisors, our financial planners in this way. We think of something that happens over a long period of time, and we think about the investments and all the, I guess, the business piece of it, but just knowing that you've got somebody to call when life happens.
Yeah, that's true. I got a call a few months ago from a client she was in the hospital with her husband, and I'm not trying to come up with these sad cases, but they needed somebody to help wind down his business. And I had a great resource that I was able to connect her with, and she was really appreciative because that's not something I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I do try to have really trustworthy, awesome people in different areas that I can refer to and can count on to help my clients and serve them in the way that I would.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So just to underline kind of the types of clients that you work with and who are ideal fits for Healy Wealth Management.
So I would say that a really busy time for people financially is probably from their 40s on through retirement. There are just a lot of moving parts, a lot of competing goals, a lot of things you want to do. You want to get it right. I think that's probably 45 and older is when a whole lot is happening. Now, when you're younger than that, there's a lot you can do if you just know what some good principles are. Dave Ramsey is a good resource. I don't agree with everything Dave Ramsey says. I don't think anybody does because he tries to agitate and be controversial too a little bit. But he calls them the baby steps, and they are tried and true. You need to have an emergency savings. You need to start with that. Then you need to make sure you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved. But guess what? You have to know how much you're spending. Back to the very first thing I said, you really need to know how much you're spending. How can you know if you have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved if you don't know that number?
Right.
And then from there, you go on and prioritize retirement, prioritize saving for kids' college. But he does have this, I think it's 7 baby steps that I would look into if I were a young person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Kathy, this has been great. And I can't imagine there aren't some folks that hearing what you've had to say wouldn't want to be in touch and maybe see how their own individual situation, but you could be helpful with what they've got going on. How can folks get in touch with you?
So you can check out our website, healywealth.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me at kathy.healy@healywealth.com. I'm always available to give a second opinion. I would love to meet with somebody and get information, and usually I'll do a pretty thorough analysis of their investments and let them know. A lot of times people don't know what their investment objective is. So I can tell them what it currently is and then make some recommendations and see if it's a good fit. But I'm always willing to talk to people, answer questions.
Kathy Healy with Healy Wealth Management. Kathy, thanks again for coming in. We're just delighted we could shine the light on the great work you're doing.
Thanks, John. It's been great to know you for a long time and been involved in the chamber with you and just kept up with you for years.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you and John and the great work you do. Thank you. Great to know both of you. So thank you for that. Hey, folks, just a couple of things before we let you go for today. I have a book out, and if you are a solopreneur, if you are a small professional service firm, if you're selling your expertise, basically, this book's for you because it addresses your value, how you express and understand your value, your positioning, business development, and your pricing. So if you're a consultant, coach, attorney, CPA, accountant, what have you, this book is written expressly for you. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. thegenerositymindset.com is the place to go to learn more about the book and where to find it, which is essentially where all books are sold. Also, I just want to thank you. If you're listening to this show, I want to thank you because you have supported us over these years in ways that we can't even begin to relate. And I'm grateful to you for that because we are at show number 830 or something like that, over 8.5 years, coming up on 9 years of North Fulton Business Radio. And we've only gotten that far because of you. So thank you for your support. You help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. And I'm grateful for you. So for my guest, Kathy Healy, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.